what we are hearing is that people are looking to move to Nova Scotia for the quality of life. A lot of folks have, as a result of COVID, either because their work has become remote or because it's called into question for them how they actually want to live and what's important to them, are seeking out places where they can live a lifestyle that's more in line with their own values and dreams, and that can be a healthy place for them to raise their families. So yeah, what we're hearing is that people are finding, their dollar is stretching further. You can get more house, more value here in Nova Scotia. Folks who can work remotely, as long as the internet's good, which it is here in Bridgewater, they can work from wherever. They can drop the big commutes and they can spend more time with their families, enjoying recreational opportunities, enjoying the natural world, and being able to live closer to that is certainly something that we're hearing from prospective members. Nova Scotia has incredible natural beauty. We're known as Canada's ocean playground, and the ocean is a big feature in a lot of people's lives here. We also are known for our music here on the East Coast, friendly people, and climate, believe it or not. I can't tell you how many folks have moved to Nova Scotia and been pleasantly surprised with how the weather has been for them here. Of course, that's all relative to where you're coming from, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of play in all four seasons here. I think I want to also mention that Nova Scotia has become known as one of the safest places in the world in these COVID times. And while we certainly hope that COVID itself will fade, I think what won't fade is the culture that has created the safety here in this time, where I believe that the reason that we're doing so well here is the deep care that people have for each other and their communities here. So, this is what's happening now, is reversing this trend that we've seen for years of people leaving Atlantic Canada and going west. And now people, that's shifting around. People are coming east. And yet people are buying without a sense of the community that they're buying into, that they're buying a house in. And I think what we have to offer here with Treehouse Village, and you'll hear more today, is that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to buy a house that you have no idea what it's going to be like to actually, interact with your neighbors and what the community will be like when you get there. Co-housing and Treehouse Village gives you a chance to really get to know the people, get to know the place before you even step foot here. And so with that segue, I'm going to bring in Meg and Matt. Matt, I knew I was going to do that. Meg and Mike here, who are making moves to be part of Treehouse. And so, yeah, Meg, I'm wondering if you can, let's just start with some introductions. Like, tell us who you are, and yeah, so Meg first, and then Mike.
Sure. I'm Meg, and I recently just moved back to Nova Scotia with my partner, Matt. That's the confusion of Meg and Matt is easy to roll off the tongue, but we just moved back in November from Sacramento, California. And before that, we were living in Vancouver. We are now able to work remotely. And so I work as a coach and entrepreneur, mainly working with folks in crisis intervention and folks who are working on progressive campaigns or are progressive candidates, mostly in the US. And surprisingly, crisis intervention skills really mirror or match really well with that work. And I'm really grateful to now be in Nova Scotia, able to do that work remotely. Yeah, so that's just a little bit about me.
Want me to go, Cate?
Yeah, who are you, Mike?
I'm Mike McKenzie. I've lived in Nova Scotia all my life. I grew up in Cape Breton, and now I live in Dartmouth, which is the neighbor city to Halifax. So I live here with my partner, Emma, and our two young girls, Tilly and Rose, who are 1 and 3. and we own a house in Dartmouth, and I'm a school teacher, conveniently teaching at the high school, which is a walk down the road. So we're playing the young family game. We're just, trying to spend as much time as we can with our two young girls while still building our careers or finding meaning in our careers and fixing up this old bungalow that we live in. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you both. Yeah. So Mike, it sounds like you got it pretty good there in the city. You've got a house, you've got a secure job. Can you tell us a bit about your decision making, like when it comes to Treehouse? Like, why leave that? You've got a good thing going on there.
Yeah, and that is funny because there was this this transition period right before we had kids. You're spending a lot of time thinking, do we want to buy a house? Are we going to stay in the city? And then we sort of committed to be like, no, we like what the city life offers us. Mostly that was walkability, and our careers were here. And it is, there are a lot of great aspects to it. So originally when Treehouse was presented to us, that's because my partner Emma worked with Cate and Leon, and just had the utmost respect and admiration for those two individuals. So when they were piloting a new project, we wanted to support them, and eventually it came down to like, hey, is this right for us? And that was one of those classic pro or con lists in front of you, of like, here's what we have, here's the decision that's in front of us. And to be honest, the big one that drove me initially was a new house, particularly passive solar. So in my life, I am really looking to free up as much time to play. I'm trying to have that work-life balance, and renovating a home is really work for me. That is a work. That is not play for me. That is work. So having a brand new home was big, and me and Emma are both have strong environmental values and sustainability mindset. So being passive solar was also, that was a big star and something that we can't afford on our own. And that was the first inkling into, well, you don't have to do everything on your own. But that initially was the big decision maker. And the secondary was the yard. Where I grew up in Cape Breton, I'm real grateful for my upbringing, which was open the door and go play. And I did want to provide that for my girls. And initially that was like, I look at where we're at and we have a nice yard and it works for a 1- and 3-year-old, but it's bound to getting in the car and maybe going to the community park. And I see, especially as they get older, I didn't want them running through these streets. It would be fine. It's still great, but that was a big decision maker. And now it's funny looking back because we have been part of Treehouse for 2 years now. So trying to put my head into what we were initially making decisions on, versus all the things that have come to fruition and all that I've learned about co-housing and Treehouse over the last 2 years. But we were ready to move to a rural community, and not rural, to a smaller community. We weren't bound to the city. And I guess the last thing I would say is the job was one of those big ones because Treehouse offered a better house, particularly that aspect of going outside, passive solar. That's what we don't have. I viewed it as being able to free Emma up for more play in our lives and work-life balance. And a mind shift that happened was about building a lifestyle, choosing a lifestyle, and then my career is still a choice there, but it was like choosing lifestyle first. And Treehouse is going to be a better life. It is a better lifestyle. So that was some insight into our decision-making process.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mike. And those are big decisions, and I know you and Emma have had your pros and cons lists that you've looked at over the years to make that decision. Meg, you've made a big move recently and lots to consider in that. Can you tell us, you've just moved across across North America from one side to the other. And you were brand new to Treehouse when you made that move back in November. Can you tell us a bit about what it was like to, you know, to be already a new member of Treehouse at that time, and how the community was in supporting that move?
Yeah, it was hugely supportive. And just for context, Matt and I, both our families are here in Nova Scotia. But even just without that, there's something about Nova Scotia that we just felt a real pull to, kind of for what you were saying, like the safety of it, but just the community here. Both us having spent a lot of time here, there's something unique about the community, and that was reflected even in the support we received while prepping for this move home. So for example, we had all our logistics planned out to get ourselves from Sacramento to Nova Scotia, which you can imagine has a lot of moving pieces, a lot of components. And we had just reached out to Treehouse Village as we were planning this move. And it was Scott and Becky, shout out to them, who we jumped on a call with, because they had also just made basically the same exact move from very close to where we were in California to Nova Scotia. And just the reassurance in looking at all the details with them, and them actually helping us mitigate our plan, so we were saving money and saving time and saving energy, was huge. And it just made the trip a lot easier, having just that initial connection piece. And then even just when getting here, as we were still exploring Treehouse Village, it's been, as it is with Nova Scotians or people living in Nova Scotia, there's just such a intention to be connecting with each other. And it has been so nice to get down to Bridgewater and see and hang out with you, Cate, and the folks in Bridgewater, and then Mike and Emma having us over to their place, not having ever met us. Like, it's just the community component, which is the main catalyst for us coming back to Nova Scotia, is so reflected in this group at Treehouse Village. And we felt it from the very beginning of our exploration time and to now. So it's made the transition a lot easier, because moving's always a bit of a feat. And I will say, even though this was a cross-country trip, this is one of the smoother transitions we had, and I really do attribute it to all the support Matt and I have had in the process from Treehouse Village folks.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story, Meg. So you and Matt are in Halifax now, and my understanding is that that's not necessarily your final destination, final resting place. Can you tell us a bit about what you are seeking, and how, to what extent Treehouse Village ticks some of those boxes?
Yeah, it isn't our final spot. We're glad to be here because my parents and sister are here for right now, but they're not going to be here in the next couple years. And as we're looking, and have been looking at what we want longer term, it has come back to having a close community. And one of the things that was so funny because Cate, you were the person who kind of planted this seed in my head years ago. And so Matt and I have always kind of been eyeing co-housing. It's been on our radar. We were thinking about looking at co-housing in California for a while before we realized we wanted to be in Nova Scotia. And for me, I really wanted to be in the woods or close to nature. That was like a really important piece for me. And Matt really loves being able to walk or bike to amenities, because he loves active transportation, and that's something that's really important to him. And when we went on to the Treehouse Village website when we were first exploring, it blew our minds that Treehouse Village was both in the woods and within walking distance to amenities. It's a really unique thing. Because we really thought, like, is this going to exist? Like, where we get both of these things. So that was huge. And I love Bridgewater too, having spent some time in Bridgewater, the progressive town, the sustainable initiatives and the values really align with what I care about, and the change making spirit. It just is really alive in Bridgewater. And it feels like there's a lot that this town and this community is capable of making happen, and Treehouse Village being one piece of that. So that's what we've been looking for as we look long term at what we want to be a part of and putting our energy and our roots into.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm.
And so, Mike, you and your family have been a part of Treehouse for quite a bit longer. You joined, I think, about 2 years ago, back when there was a clear vision, but very few knowns. You and your family definitely were early adopters to this vision, and now we're at a point. There are many more certainties. We have the land, we have the design, we have 70% of our neighbors. There's a lot more that's known, and by the end of next year, you and your family are going to be living in Treehouse. So I'm curious to know what has happened during this development phase that has given you a glimpse and glimpses into what life is going to be like for your family after you move in.
Yeah, I would say initially when I was talking about our decision making and how a lot of it for me was rooted in the house and having that piece of property and that open door policy for my kids. And as what co-housing was sort of the unknown to me. I didn't come into this project familiar with co-housing, and it really didn't impact my decision making early on because that was an unknown. But as I've been part of the project for the past 2 years, that really has proven to me where the magic is. So co-housing has just demonstrated to me what a model of living together that I've so enjoyed participating in, and can't wait to actually to let it play out. So there's just been lots of aspects to it. If I could reflect when we're buying this house in Dartmouth, like so much intention into the house you're buying, and then you just hope the rest works out. Like I had never thought previously about community as it was just a byproduct of all these other things I was doing in my life. So I have a work community and a school community, and we have friends and we all build community, but it was sort of a byproduct of other things I was doing. So the intentionality of the community we're building it's just really been great. I mean, in some ways, even being part of Treehouse the last 2 years, it's just been a good source of even meaning in our lives. Like you feel like working with other people, I have this sense of contribution I didn't have. I didn't even realize was lacking because I just wasn't on my radar. So it was almost like this unknown. I didn't know until I was part of it, and now that I am, I almost can't see it any other way. It's become a lens for my decision making. But I would say too, it's like I feel really lucky about all the wonderful things that are happening. But because I have an inside look, I know it's not luck. I know it's the hard work that's happening behind the scenes by so many dedicated members. So yeah, I guess I would say is that originally getting in, it was the home, and now it's the community, and just these people that you form relationships with. I've been so impressed about our ability to transition online. Like there were people that in the community now that I get to spend time with because they're in Nova Scotia, but even people that are in the United States or across Canada that now you form relationships with. Yeah, and it comes down to a feeling. I just feel, I feel really good about it, about putting my kids in that position. I feel like I'm doing something good for my family, and the people that I've got to connect with and the experience so far. I look forward to raising my kids with them and growing with them. And it's like it's still an unknown when we grow together. There's just a ton of potential. I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't been part of something that had so much potential, that has done so much work and still yields so much potential moving forward. So I don't try to think, it's given me a glimpse into that, when the classic, when you're with people that are looking to make a difference and looking to have fun, but work hard and create, it's been really, valuable to me. And I know to my family, just to be part of that from the ground up. It's like I never had that before in my life. It was a very unique experience, and it's been extremely meaningful.
Yeah, I think, we've had this conversation. I think it was we camped on the land, Mike's family and Caitlin's family and my family camped on the land last summer. And we were talking about how, like, what a gift this is to give to our kids, right? Like, this is really being very intentional about the kind of village we want to raise them in. And I still remember you saying, Mike, like, and this is a gift to yourself. Like, you think you're going to be a better dad, you're going to be a better person by living in this place too. And yeah, I did that kind of stuck with me as well, that I don't know, being the parent of a little kid right now, like, so much of my decision is about what's good for him. But I see it as having ripple effects, certainly to my life as well. Really looking forward to that. Meg, tell me how you make decisions. Do you use your head, your heart, your gut? How do you go about these? These are big decisions.
That's a
right?
great question.
Yeah.
It's so funny because like Matt and I have totally different decision-making processes, which is both good and challenging, and really, really helpful, because I would be a heart person. I go with my gut, my heart. And Matt, thankfully, is a very logical decision, like, has all the mapping out of everything, considering all components. And so as we've been looking at Treehouse Village, it's been really helpful to have both of us looking at it and supporting each other to take the other approach. But yeah, I'd say for me, I go with my heart first. And thankfully Matt goes with the logical plans to keep us grounded.
Nice. So what about you, Mike?
Well, I've got to spend some time with Matt and Meg too, and I see a similar contrast in our decision making. Is that I like to use my wife's head and then use my gut, but I definitely use both. We thought a lot about it, but I would say that there was something when initially making the decision, I was like, I haven't had this opportunity before. Like, if I don't take this opportunity, what am I potentially passing on, or what am I looking for? Like, I don't know. I didn't have many other opportunities come to me like, hey, we're doing this really progressive, innovative project. Do you want to be a part of it? And I want my answer to be yes. And to the other opportunities that are going to come my way in my life. But those are the things, eventually that was my gut being like, this is right. This is something you say yes to and see where it goes. And I want to keep that openness to future decisions that I know are going to come my way because of the one I've made to join Treehouse, that has then opened me up to other more innovative, fun opportunities, and I know it'll continue to do so. So I'd say gut, but a little head in there too, maybe. I hope. I think.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Meg. That draws to the end of our conversation time together today. I want to let folks know whether you're using your heart or your head or your gut to decide about getting to know Treehouse. I'd like to let you know, regardless of how you make that decision, how to go about it, how to go about taking a step in. So the next step would be to schedule a virtual viewing. That will be likely with me, and I'll give you a more in-depth tour than you had today about all things Treehouse. So that you can find the schedule a virtual viewing button on our website under the buy a home page. I think there's a few other places it exists as well. So click on that and I will be in touch with the next step from there. Our website also has a lot of information, a lot of good stuff on there. If you haven't seen it yet, like check out the blog. You'll hear, more stories written in the, from our members about their decisions and what they're looking forward to and all that kind of stuff.